Hello guys, so this is the Polyglot Programmer, and today we're gonna learn how to make a 3D character controller from scratch. And we're gonna create a small world. We're gonna add a ground. We're gonna add a player. We're gonna add a camera, and we're gonna create a little script to manage all that. Right? So without further ado, let's just get started. Right? So this is a brand new project that I created here on Godot. And it's set to 3D. There's nothing on it, as you can see. So the first thing that we're gonna do here is just gonna create our main scene or world or whatever you like to call it. And for that, I'm just gonna I added a 3D node. I'm gonna call it a main scene. I'm gonna save it. Great, saved. And I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna create the world environment and the directional light already. So I'm just gonna go in here, these three little dots here. This is a really straightforward and fast way to add directional light and environment, which is Godot's version of post-processing. And boom, there we go, we have it. So okay, so now we have this. Next thing that we're gonna create here is we're gonna add a ground, right? So for that, we're gonna add a mesh instance 3D, right? I'm gonna name it ground, and I'm gonna set this to plane. I'm gonna click here. I'm gonna make this a bit bigger. Awesome. And now I'm gonna add a tri-mesh static body that just adds the collision shape, the collision body, and everything, so the player can walk on it, right? So just click here. It already added a static body, added a collision shape, so I don't need to worry about this stuff. Awesome. Great. So now we need a player. So now let's add a player. Let's do this. Okay. And for the player, we're gonna add a character body to 3D here. Great, right? Now let me just do this so I'm added a character body 3D, which is complaining here, and it's saying that it needs a collision of some sort, right? So we're gonna first add a mesh, right? Because we don't really have a character here, so I'm gonna add a mesh 3D here. And this time I'm gonna set to capsule. Awesome. But yeah, this guy is looking a bit weird, right? So what we're gonna do here is that we're gonna click on this guy here. We're gonna make it a little slimmer. He doesn't need to be that tall. That is awesome. And yeah, this is great. And now here, here we're just gonna make this guy great, cool. So now we have a little player, right? And it's still complaining that we don't have a collision. It's not still complaining now. This new guy here is also complaining that we don't have a collision shape. So we're gonna add that now. We're gonna add a collision shape here, right? Collision shape, great. And this time, since our player is a capsule, so we're gonna add a capsule. And we're gonna, as you can see here, there's a little frame, a little blue frame here around our player. We're gonna just make it a bit, like, we're gonna make it, oh, no, I don't want that. About the same size, great. But since we're gonna create a character controller, I'm gonna add a little nose to our player, because this guy, since it's a capsule, we don't really know which way it's facing now. I know because I just added, so it's facing that way. But I'm gonna add a little nose here, just so we can later on know which way he's facing, right? So I'm just gonna add another mesh here, mesh 3, mesh instance, yeah. Gonna add mesh. I'm just even gonna call it nose, right? Yes. And this guy, I think we need to make it a cylinder. Yeah, let's make it a cylinder. Cylinder, great, but this is way too big. Let's do this right here. Let's make it a bit smaller, so 0.1, 2.3 maybe. Let's see. This is good enough. We just need to know which way he's facing. So, and we can do that here, right? When we're playing with our guy, we're gonna know that way is a front. Is where he's facing. Great. So now we have our character. We have a ground. We have a little world. Perfect. Let's just rename this guy to player. Awesome. So now we're gonna add our camera, right? In this case, we're just gonna add a fixed camera. It's gonna be like a top-down game. The camera is not really gonna move, but if you guys want me to create a quick tutorial on how to make the camera follow the player, feel free to add to the comments, and I'll be happy to do that. So for now, we're just gonna what we're gonna do here. We're gonna add a marker 3D, right, to our world, and here we're gonna just call this camera pivot. And in here we're gonna add a camera. Great. So how do we position the camera? So the best way to do that, and what I usually do, is that I go in here, right, and I click view, and I choose 2 viewports. So now I have this guy, and then I select this guy, I click the camera, and then here I click preview. So this is what the camera is seeing. So now I can basically position the camera in any way I want. So I want on the camera somewhere. I'm on the camera like looking down on him a little bit. So this is great. So imagine that we have a kind of a top-down game like this. This is great. This, we're gonna be able to see the character moving, and this is perfect. Great. So this is, I think this is all that we need for in terms of nodes and components in our game. So we don't need the 2 viewports anymore, so we can go back here. And the next thing that we're gonna do is that we're gonna the final thing is that we're gonna add a script to the player. But before we do that, we're gonna go to project settings, and we're gonna update our input maps, because I don't want to use the standard one, the default ones that it comes with the project. So you go to project settings, input map tab, and here we're just gonna add like a forward, back, left, right, and I'm gonna add a little jump. Great. And we're gonna map these guys here. So forward is gonna be the W key, back is gonna be the S key, left A, right D. And by the way, I do have a short video on the input map system on Godot, so feel free to go check that out. It's really cool, and just a 1-minute video which I give a quick overview of the topic. So yeah. And jump is gonna be the spacebar. Awesome. Close. Okay, so we have everything that we need. So the only thing left, and last but not least, is to attach a script to our to our player, right? So, and we're gonna inherit from character body 3D, but since we're gonna create this guy from scratch, I'm not gonna use a template, right? And we're just gonna create it. Great. So here we have stripped down script, and there's nothing on it, and we're gonna do everything from scratch, right? And so the first thing that we need to do here, right, is that we're gonna declare some variables that we're gonna need, right? So I'm gonna need a speed, and I'm gonna declare them as consts, right? You could declare them as exploited variables and tweak, so you can tweak them later in the inspector. But for this case, I'm just gonna keep them as constants, because yeah. Then acceleration, right? Acceleration. Next, we're gonna need a rotation speed. Rotation speed. And we're gonna need a jump velocity, right? Const jump velocity. Okay, so the next the other variable that we're gonna do, and just to give an example on how this is it and how you can actually export a variable so you can set it in the inspector, I'm gonna declare the gravity as an exported variable, right? So the gravity is basically going to be the force that's going to pull the character down. You could get the full gravity from the project settings, but in this case, let's just have our own gravity so we can tweak it as we want it, right? And here to make a variable exported to the inspector, you just add this keyword here at export, and then you just declare it normally. All right, so let's start with -10. This should work. All right, and as you save this, yeah, you can see here that the gravity is right here. Since the script is attached to the player, the gravity is right here, and we can tweak this later if we need it, right? This is it in terms of variables, and the only method that we need to implement here in this case, override it, right? Because we're using character body that is inheriting from other nodes, and we're going to talk about inheritance in another video. But in this case, when you need to move a physics object, usually you would do that in a method called physics process. And if you want to know more about it, you can just hold the Control button on your keyboard and left click, and it goes straight into the documentation. And this is basically called on every frame, and it's synced with the physics. And there's a delta variable, which is basically the time since the last frame. And this is where we make update to any physics object usually, right? So great. So this guy's gonna run on every frame, and the first thing that we're gonna get it out of the way here is just take care of the jump, right? So for the jump, all we need to do is that we do if input is action just pressed, right? So you pressed once, and I'm gonna look for jump, which is the input map that we declare in the project settings, right? But if we do just this, the guy can just kind of keep jumping, and he could basically fly. So we're not going to allow him to jump if he's in the floor, right? So if he's already in the air, we're not going to allow it for double jump. That would need a different logic for that. And Godot has a method called isOnFloor, which, again, if you're curious, just hold Control, click here. In this case, okay. Yeah, and then it returns true if the body collided with the floor on last call of move and slide. Awesome. This is exactly all we need. So if you press jump and he's on the floor, then we're gonna do this. And what it is that we're gonna do, we're just gonna update the velocity y axis, which is the axis going up and down, right? And what we're gonna update it with, we're gonna update it with jump velocity, which is this guy that we declare here on the top. Awesome. Right, so now we have jump. I think that if we test this, yeah, let's just select current. We just have one scene here. Oh, it's not working. No. Oh yeah, because we need to update it with the gravity, but that's fine. Yeah, we're gonna do that in just a little. And it's not working because we need to call move and slide. Otherwise, it's like, yeah, if we call move and slide here, yeah, but now it's going up forever because we haven't updated with the gravity yet, right? To do that actually is quite simple. We could do that right now, just as an example. So velocity, after we updated the jump, yeah, we just do y plus equal, because we're just incrementing it, gravity times delta, right? And if we play now, the guy should go back to the floor. Awesome. This is perfect. Great. So we took care of the jump. That's awesome. So now we're gonna take care of the movement. So he needs to move sideways, right? So to move sideways, the first thing that we're gonna do, we're gonna declare I call it an input movement vector, and we're gonna instantiate that guy to input movement vector, and we're gonna instantiate the guy to 0, right? So the movement is 0. If nothing else happens, he's just gonna stay on that place, right? And at the end here, we can do this in parts, right? So in at the end here, what we're gonna do is that velocity dot x-axis equals input movement vector dot x times speed, and the same thing for the z-axis, right? So here we're starting at 0, and here after we do our logic, where we're gonna get the input from the keyboard in here, we're gonna update the velocity, and this again, if you look at the documentation for move and slide, moves the body based on the velocity. So whatever we update the velocity with, that's what move and slide is gonna use, right? And times the speed, because that's how fast we on the character go, right? So yeah, so here declaring a vector to 0, here updating the velocity with whatever the vector is. Awesome. So now let's get the input, right? So here is input movement vector dot x. So x is when he's moving, let's say right or left, right? And here we're gonna use a method called get action strength. Not straight. So we need input get action strength, right? And because we're going to do one minus the other, right? So because and then we're going to normalize this guy, because yeah, he's always going to be going either left or right or diagonal. So that's why we need to do that's why I like to get both of them at the same time. So we do input get action strength, and here is left. Awesome. And again, and we're gonna do the same thing for the z-axis. The z-axis is when he's moving, let's say forward or backwards, right? So the difference here is that we're gonna do back here, and here is forward. Great. So now we're updating our 3D vector here, but we haven't updated we haven't normalized this guy yet. So the next thing that we're going to do is that we're going to normalize. And the reason that we normalize this guy is because it's pretty much because of the diagonal, right? Because if you don't normalize when he goes to the diagonal, he's always going to go way too fast, right? So Godot has a function for that, right? So again, if you go into this guy, no? Yeah, okay. All right, returns a vector scale to the unit length, right? So that's why if you go right, it's going to go at a speed of 5. If you go left, it's going to go at a speed of 5. So if it goes to the diagonal, he's always also going to go to the speed of 5. Because if you have, let's say if you have a square, right, the diagonal is always a bit further away than the points to the left, to the right or left, right? If you get what I mean. Yeah, and well, just by doing this, the guy should be going sideways. Let's see. Yeah, he's going sideways. See, I'm pressing WSAD, but he's not turning, right? His nose is always pointing that way. Let's take care of that now, right? So to take care of the nose, it's actually not that complicated, right? So we're only gonna update the rotation if the guy is actually moving, right? So let's say that if input vector is not vector 3.0, so if it's not standing still, then yeah, then we're gonna update the movement. And so the first thing that we need to do is that we need to calculate the target rotation for that. And for that, there is a nice little function on Godot that's called atam, ATAM, to whatever your language is. You're gonna pronounce that differently, I guess. But like, yeah. So this is how it works. You say negative x, right? And the second parameter is negative z, right? And again, I always like to go into the documentation to check it out. So returns a arc tangent of y and x. In this case, it's talking about two dimensions, right? So you used to get an angle of a tangent at y and x. To compute the value, it takes into account the sign of both arguments in order to determine the quadrant. So, well, this is all very mathematical. But so basically, it's saying that you get the strength from x, and then you get the strength from z, and then you put them together in this function, and it's gonna return a rotation for you, right? And then after we do this, what we're gonna do is we could update the rotation straight on with the target rotation, but then it's gonna be very rough, right? And we don't want to do that. That doesn't look good. So what we're gonna do in this case is that we're gonna update the y rotation. Again, y is up and down. If you wanna update where the character is looking, that's the one that you need to update, right? And we're gonna use a function called lerp angle. So lerp is like interpolate. So it's gonna interpolate from one point to the other point using a certain speed, let's call it, right? So he's gonna go from rotation y. So he's gonna go from his current rotation to the target rotation, which we just calculated, and we're gonna use a rotation speed, and this is where we're gonna use the delta, right? So he can do that smoothly, otherwise it would be way too fast. And if we play now, there you go. So now I'm pressing A, is going left, and right is going, and D is going right, and then W, S, and I can jump, and I can even apparently change direction mid-jump, which some games allow you to do, depending on the game that you're developing. But that's it, guys. As you can see, a very simple character controller for a 3D character with a top-down view and no more than 30 lines of code. And I'm gonna update this code to my Patreon. If you wanna go in there and buy me a coffee, or if you wanna just press pause on the video and do it yourself, feel free. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and if you have any questions, or if you have any suggestions, or if you wanna see me working on anything that I missed here, please feel free to add to the comments, and I'll make sure to get to it, and I'll make sure to record a video in the future addressing your concerns. That's it for today. See y'all later.